Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Ed Bogish. I'm the Executive Director of SyracuseCoE. We're the New York State Center of Excellence in Environmental and Energy Systems. We have as many of you know, we have a monthly program of research and technology forums. And for months, we've been waiting for this day when we invited Professor Eric Schiff to give us a presentation. And we were looking forward to Eric's presentation. And then yesterday we learned that the U.S. Department of Energy cordially asked Eric not to speak because of potential conflict of interest between his appointment at ARPA-E and his appointment at Syracuse University. These regulations prevent him to speak. And we had a brief moment of panic, thinking that we would have to cancel this R&T forum, and ARPA-E cordially offered a replacement. And I think it's only fitting. I was advertised as the moderator of this session, that I should be replaced too. So we're going to have Chetna Chinesi serve as the moderator. As many of you know, Chetna serves as Associate Director for Research at SyracuseCoE. Chetna joined COE officially in this position about a year ago. And before that, she was a project scientist at COE, and before that, she was in the Office of Sustainability Initiatives at Syracuse University. And before that, she was at DOE as a fellow in the Office of Advanced Manufacturing, where she served for 2 years and 9 months at DOE, and before that she was at SAIC in Washington, D.C. Chetna has a bachelor's degree in chemistry from Vanderbilt and a PhD in chemistry from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Without further ado, Chetna Chinesi.
Thank you. Introduction to the moderator, so I appreciate that. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Graciela Blanchet. Dr. Blanchet is a Technology to Market Advisor at the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Energy, which is a part of the U.S. Department of Energy. She helps prepare breakthrough energy technologies for transition from lab to market, specifically focusing on renewable energy and carbon footprint mitigation. Prior to joining ARPA-E, I think you've been there 6 months, is that correct? Yes. At ARPA-E, you know, ARPA-E has rotators, so they have a lot of turnover. So people stay 4 years, and you have a real mix of people coming from industry and with an academia with really good experience. Prior to joining ARPA-E, Dr. Blanchet served as Chief Technology Officer at Nanotechnology for 5 years. There she recruited and hired top-tier scientists and guided them through the process of development and commercialization of functional nanomaterials, water purification reactors, and high-resolution printing of silicon photovoltaic cells. Prior to Nanotechnology, Dr. Blanchet spent much of her career at DuPont. She held multiple positions there. She led the printable electronics and laser imaging efforts, developing technologies that have been successfully commercialized. So she's a really good fit for this technology to market position at ARPA-E. Dr. Blanchet holds her PhD in physics from Brown University and a BS in physics from the University of Buenos Aires. She has more than 60 patents and has published more than 65 academic papers. And today she will be speaking generally about ARPA-E as a program and then also about the SHIELD program, which is a newly started program which Eric Schiff manages and Dr. Blanchet is the Technology Market Advisor for, focused on single-pane window efficiency. So Graciela, take it away. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It was I'm stepping in for Eric Schiff, which the last minute 4 p.m. last night. The 200 students, which I had to kind of to make it up for today. So, as Chetna was saying, I started ARPA-E about 6 months ago, coming from Nanotechnology, which was a nanomaterials company where I was working in nanomaterials for renewables, specifically for photovoltaics, and also we were designing materials for carbon capture. So when ARPA-E called to recruit me, and they were doing a third of their programs were in carbon capture, I thought that was a great opportunity for me because it would have much more leverage to help with climate change from the government than it would have from a legal company like I was at. So I joined ARPA-E, so the first thing they told me is that I was going to work in Windows. And then I was thinking, well, first a little bit surprising, a little bit disappointing in a way, but after 6 months, it really, the subtle piece of Windows grew me. And working with ARPA-E has been a great pleasure. So it worked out. So, and that's really what we are doing in Windows, in Single-Pane Windows. The program is called SHIELD. Eric is the program director and the C2M advisor in the program. So, this is an example of a single-pane house in Connecticut, which is absolutely gorgeous. The downside of this house is that in the winter in Connecticut it must be extraordinarily cold. So there is a kind of mismatch between a beautiful architecture and full engineering for humans to live in. So, but in panels this big, you cannot do anything but single panels. So the thought was, can you modify the single panels in a way that you can produce more insulation to make it more human friendly than the normal single panel. So then why haven't single panels been totally replaced by double pane windows? And they've been there for 15 to 30 years. The rate of return, they're extremely expensive, and the rate of return is 10 to 15 years. So that's part of the reason why it doesn't have a more widely adoption than it has. Another issue is that you cannot do any of the architecture. You have to be certain. And another issue, this is like our building in Washington. So there are tons of buildings that they are seven buildings with huge glass windows, and the weight of double pane will be such that you cannot use it. So let me start first before I tell you about the SHIELD program, a little bit about ARPA-E. For you, maybe a lot you know about this, but anyway. In 2007, the National Academy recommended to Congress that they create the Advanced Research Program Agency focusing energy. And it would be part of the Department of Energy. And that was the goal, and I think in a way, I really feel you because this is what most of the people in ARPA-E are in ARPA-E because they truly believe that this is why they are there. It is also creative, out of the box, transformative energy research, where risk and potential payoffs are very high, and where if successful, it will provide dramatic benefits to this nation. And since we're talking about renewable energy, this has been an incredible drawing card for them to hire people. They have three pieces to ARPA-E. One is climate change. The other one is improve energy efficiency, and we have a lot of automobile programs and so forth. And the third one is renewables, and through renewables reduce energy import. We feel that we catalyze innovation because through grants we can provide enough synergy for people and through programs for people to be free to innovate and have new programs. And with this forefront of innovation, and all our teams are like university mixed or companies, they're very broad teams, and that seems to work very well. I think in the last 6 months there was a single program, it's just one institution. We started in 2007, but the first time we gave grants out was in 2009. And we started with $400 million coming from the Recovery Act. The we will receive less money as we going forward, but next year we go back to 400 million. So, and it's supposed to get to $1 billion in 4 years. So, so far we have funded more than 500 programs, and it's in a variety of areas. We have programs in electricity generation, grid and storage, emissions, transportation, and we have one program in carbon capture, which is going to have a lot of pressure. And each of these programs actually is like 15 or 20 grants per dot that you see here. So, like you see in any institution, either I don't know if in university or what, but in industry you see very clearly. You start with a number of programs, and out of the number of programs, only a few make it to market. So it's like a funnel. And what we see at ARPA-E is essentially the same thing. We fund a lot of programs. Just a few, like 10 to 15%, are actually successful enough that can make it to market. So how we view ourselves is that when they apply for the grant, they are somewhere here. The program still in the lab, really very basic research. And when they leave ARPA-E, the good ones, they see you have a percolation here, loss, it's clear that there is no market or the technology didn't work out, whatever reason it was, they will not make it through. If you do, and when they leave ARPA-E, they are sort of almost ready for a pilot scale. The top 15% of the programs are either at a startup level or an incubator level. But we still have to bridge this gap to market, right? So right now, one of my 50% of the time I'm trying to design a program to help bridge this gap through external funding in combination with ARPA-E. Because I mean, if we make it this far, we have to push them this far. So just to go over that funnel kind of this is the distribution of the awards. In the year, the people that are graduating this particular year, 2016. So we have 41% of the awards go to universities, 32% go to small companies, 15% to large companies, 8% to national labs, and 4% to nonprofits, like HARP, for instance, will be listed under nonprofits.
Does that represent the prime? So this is of the awards, the prime.
Yeah. So, but if you take the 15% that are top this year, and it's interesting because the top 15% from the rest is a big gap. It's not that there is a gray area that you don't know where to put the cutoff. It's very clear where the cutoff is. And out of this top 15%, 63% are small companies. So the 1% are really, so university is pretty good. No national labs, the non-profits are also gone, and the large companies have decreased a lot.
So could you define what is top 15%? What is that?
That you're at the incubator level or startup level. So is that you have a technology that people want.
These are the applications that you receive, the top.
No, this is after 3 years of the program.
Oh.
This is at the end of the program.
Okay.
So it's very clear who can go somewhere, who cannot.
Okay.
So there's still pre-launch or somewhere.
And like this 15%, because these are the ones that graduated in 2016 in 2 months. These ones, they are all at the startup level with the CEO. It's amazing. They're like 3 don't even need money going forward. People really, they have money coming out of their ears. They're that good. But the other 17 companies, the other 14, they still need funding.
Again, so it's the top 15% of the at the end of the award.
At the end of the award.
Top 15% in terms of whatever performance you. So this is like the cream of the.
This is the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
If you look at the funnel, this is the. You like percolate out of the.
So in the funnel, you said success would be if 15% go to market.
Yeah. And it's interesting because my husband had the labs and I was at the farm. 15% is about the number when you put many programs in that make it up. So that seems to be the number. So as we transition from the R&D from an idea into commercialization, you need money at different stages, of course, but there are some clear places where programs die. So the first value of that is kind of getting out of the R&D phase into the prototype phase. The second one is trying to scale up and have a demonstration and deliver. And the third one is when you really have to go to manufacturing. That there is much more serious money that they're going to be doing. And what we're doing is we kind of bridge the first two value of that with ARPA-E grants, and in a way with the risk the program considerably, right? So, and I still have the feeling we give them a little bit more help with the transition and help them to the top to take it. So, this is the cumulative numbers of programs that have received follow-up funding. So we have 45% projects that have been completed that attract $125 billion of private sector money. And if you take 2015, the plot I just showed you is for 2016. This one for 2015, you have 40 companies that received follow-up company funding. These are all the startups that have been created from our grants, and this is people working with other government programs. So the next question that we always get asked is ARPA and ARPA different? And there are a few differences that we are very similar. The main difference is the tech-to-market focus and the fellows. We have a group of fellows that are kind of keeping the technology much more than the rest of us. And the tech-to-market, which is my function, we have a large group, about 30 of us. And the thought here is that from the very beginning of the grant, our job is to focus the group onto whether it's a market, where you will enter in the market, how much money you will need, how much will it cost to manufacture whatever you think you can manufacture. So stay focused, and this is not an academic exercise. For us to succeed, they have to make it to market. So we're kind of pushing on that. But I think I've been coming from DuPont, which I always worked for 25 years to commercialize, and then in a startup for 5 years. It's important that everybody stays focused on that. I mean, you can get NSF money and not commercialize, but if you want ARPA-E money, you should focus on the market. So ARPA-E has program directors like Eric, C2M advisors, and we both serve for 2 years to 3 year terms. And the program director is interesting because when a new program director comes in, you cannot inherit programs from the living program director because nobody stays there for the whole length of the program, so people cannot inherit somebody else's program. And then at the same time, they have to develop their own program. So you have to have a pitch, you have to convince the director and the program director that these programs work well, and so forth. And then you have to actively manage the program for the rest of the length of the time you're in ARPA. For the C2M, it's kind of what I just said a minute ago. You have to focus in commercializing, keep the group focused into trying to think what is the best way to make it to market. So this is our logo. If it works, will it matter? So for each program that we have, this is what everybody has to be focused. Program directors, C2M, everybody else. So now that you know a little bit about ARPA, let me tell you what we're doing in terms of single-pane windows. So this is a normal research program at ARPA. So you have a program conception idea, Then you have a workshop. Then once you get pretty much what you want to do with the program at the workshop, you get program approval, you put a funding opportunity out, do the review, get the contract negotiations and so forth, and then through the length of the program, which normally is 3 years and about $3 million, everybody's hands off with that particular team. So twice a year, we visit them every year. 4 times a year, we just have interactions like one or whatever it is. But we are very current of whether we have to pivot the program, whether the program is going good or not, what the market opportunity is, and so forth. So let me start on the Single-Pane Windows program with the program idea. So this is the reception area at ARPA-E. And you have these huge windows that are single pane, and everybody's always walking around with jackets. I mean, I have a coat in my office in the winter. Everybody else does, because you cannot live there in the winter and the summer. So I'm not surprised Eric chose to work on it because he was a survival technique, that's it. But in the US, you have 10 to the 10 roughly square feet of windows. So you have 13 square meters of windows per person. So let me just do a little bit on windows. We have single pane windows, which is what we're going to be addressing. Double pane, which is what most people have in their house. And triple pane, which in Europe, for instance, in Sweden is standard, and in the US we have 0 triple pane pretty much. So how you define it? Windows by the U factor, which is the heat flow from the interior through the window to the outside. So if you want the window to be perfect, you have no heat flow, so U would be 0. The larger the U, the worse the window is. So in a single pane window, the U is 1.1, and if you put a low E coating on the window, you get down to 0.7. In the double pane, it's much better. You go from 0.7 to 0.3 with load. How much energy do you have in the US are we wasting in the US? We are using 100 watts of energy per year. From that 100 watts, 15 watts are used for building, heating, and air conditioning. And from that, 4.7 of that really literally goes out the window. So it goes out the window, 2 watts go out the window for single pane, and almost another 2 go out the window in double pane. This next solar is the difference between what you use to cool your house in the summer minus what the sun is heating through the window in the winter. So it's not so bad actually because you use the sun in the winter. The bad thing about this is that on single pane, 30% of the windows are single pane, 60% are double pane. So the fact that you're using the same is telling you how much worse the single pane than the double pane. And here is in primary quad. In the Northeast, we are using about 0.4 quad for commercial buildings, 0.5 for residential, and nothing changes much through the different areas of the country, pretty uniform. Now, if you take this Northeast and split it between single pane and double pane, you see that essentially it's half and half, but again, you have double the number of double pane and single pane. This is the area, 40% of the commercial buildings are in single pane windows and 30% of the residential buildings. This is interesting because people say, why don't you just wait until everybody switches from double pane to single pane? But the thing is that they are not switching. They're switching very, very slowly. Here you have in the Northeast from 05 to 09, and it's like 2% a year that they are switching. So you will have to wait until you further do something else.
And the South has a higher penetration just because they're newer housing? Or, sorry, no, it's higher.
It's higher because they don't use double pane. It's the lowest number of double panes in the country. Another thing in the West is with such a beautiful weather, we don't need double panes much either. Okay, here, how much will it cost you to switch to, if you were going to, everybody would switch from single pane that had a very high U to a single pane that has a very low U, which is what we're trying to make into this program. And what we found out that instead of having 15-year payback, as you would have with buying the $100 a square feet double pane windows installed, you would have a 5-year payback. And here we calculated using the electricity of the local electricity as the price there. So if the market were going after that, so we spend $10 billion per quad for heating, and you have four quads of heating essentially in the U.S. So we're using $40 billion. And we have 15 billion square feet of windows that are single pane. We're trying to, within the program, we are proposing to sell installed windows for $10 a square foot rather than $100 a square foot. And that will be the market of over 150 billion if you were to convert most people.
So the $100 a square foot is if you convert it directly from single pane to double pane.
Yeah, if you want to install the double pane, the fancy Hella windows that have this little screen in between and so forth, those are around $100 per square foot, the top of the line, right? And this one, we're proposing either $5 per square foot, one of the programs, and $10 per square foot. So the question we have to do to follow the ARPA-E path is to have a workshop. So Eric posted this on the web, calling for a workshop on Windows. And so this is kind of what he put a number of what the appearances of the windows, soundproofing characteristics, winter, condensation, insulation, and price for different types of windows. Here you have the single pane, which the appearance is excellent, but really the winter comfort is not very good. They condense in the winter inside, and the insulation is very poor, but the price is good. And the double pane window is here that we have the appearance is not so good. The soundproofing, none of them are very good. The winter comfort and the condensation and the insulation are very good, but it's externally expensive. So this is a quiz that not I doing, but he was thinking that if one were to consider what would be the main thing in the winter, in the windy days, that will be controlling the insulation of the window. And will it be the resistance of the glass? Will it be, if you double the thickness of the glass, that will decrease the insulation by 50%, increase the insulation by 50%? Would it be the low coating inside of the glass? Would it be the low coating outside of the glass? And many people surprised if the low coating was controlling it's the best thing to get a little bit more information. So I wanted to just go over that with a little bit more detail. Let's assume we have a windy day in the winter here in Syracuse with -13 degrees and very windy. And that inside the house we have 21 degrees. So we have air conduction going, cooling a little bit around the glass. Now the emissivity of the glass is 0.8, which I found is incredible. It's like a black body. The emissivity of a black body is 1. The emissivity of a tile roof in a house is 0.88. So this is as absorbent as the roof in the black roof in a house, which for me was totally surprising. So with that in mind, when the room is heating, you have the room heating at 21 degrees. All the walls are like an oven through the glass. So everything that the walls are reflecting is being absorbed by by the glass. And then it re-radiated at a much colder temperature because this glass is very cold from the outside. So essentially, you're cooling the room enormously. And so only 16% of the radiation is reflected, so the rest is really literally going out the window. So the U factor is determined by the difference between these two components and these two components. And it's telling you how much is going to go out the window, and the U of a single-pane window is 104. Now, if you take the same glass and you put a low-E coating, the emissivity of a low-E coating, if you put a thin layer of aluminum, the emissivity is 0.03. So everything is essentially reflected. And very little is absorbed. So if these two pieces are reversed, so only 3%, 90% of the radiation is reflected, so the heat is kept in the room. And only 10% of the radiation is re-radiated and cooling a little bit. But essentially, with a low-E coating, you keep the room warm. So another thing that came out of the workshop was what other qualities we will need in the window. This is another photo of one of our offices with people in the window pushing to that. So essentially, she's radiatingly cooling the window. This is another picture of a single-pane with condensation, because I didn't realize that the single-pane windows condense at 2 degrees, minus 2 degrees Celsius are condensing. If you have a double-pane window, they don't condense until minus 30 centigrade. So that's a huge difference. And once you have condensation, essentially the low-E coating is very difficult for you to do. So that was something that we wanted people to address. Soundproofing was another thing we wanted people to address because of this city noise, like in New York City or something. And surprisingly, even if we put in the core-array specifically, nobody was interested. We kind of forced some of them to do it, but it wasn't in their interest, I don't think. The other thing was if you save energy, of course, you save energy by reducing the heat loss to the window, then it's cheaper to maintain. So what we came out of the workshop was a single-pane window should be a canvas for new technology creativity. And there are many, many technology options. Thin metal layers is one of them. So a lot of the programs did address low-E or many more inexpensive ways to achieve low-E, more interesting ways. And we also conducted outside. There is a lot of nanomaterial work was proposed in Then we were, another group was considering silica aerogels, nanocapsules, and so forth. There is some mesophores and nanofoams. It was a variety of proposals. So after the workshop, Eric wrote the funding opportunities, and the idea here was to grant $10 million to SBIR, and $20 million to all other entities. The program name came out to be SHIELD, which is single-pane, highly insulated station with design. Okay, so what we asked people to do was we want to achieve with a single-pane a view of 0.28 instead of 104. So it's a huge change you ask people to do. And the way to do that would be you need to have a low-E coating for sure. But you also have to have a transparent super-insulator interior on top of the glass panel. So the thought here is the following. This is kind of interesting. The condensation temperature is, we're trying to figure out what condensation temperature to ask them for as you get down in the U factor. So in a single-pane window, you come down in the U factor. The condensation temperature doesn't change much. But then when you start adding a super-insulating barrier, it just drops very fast. And so you can get, with an insulating barrier in a single-pane window, you can get to a condensation temperature of -15 -3 degrees. It's not as good as the double pane, but it will be much better than -2 degrees. So as a super insulator, what would you do? Glass has a thermal conductivity of 1 watt per meter degree value. And there are tons of things that have much lower thermal conductivity, which is what we want here. For instance, krypton and argon and air. Krypton is what they wanted to use for the double pane window. Now they are using argon. But aerogels are just as good as the air-filled double pane windows. And then you have polyurethane foam, polystyrene foams, and so forth. Now, the catch here is that all these nanoporous materials are not clear. So you would have to design a clear nanoporous material, and that is pretty hard. And that's what we're asking the group to do. And the issue here is that the light scattering goes like a third power of the particle size inside the nanoform. So if you have a 500 nanometer particle size, scatters 1,000 times more than a 50 nanometer particle size. So they will have to keep the particle size below the wavelength of the light, plus very, very uniform, because just a few will throw the cage way up. This is an example of a silicon aerogel that is pretty clear, but clearly not enough for window. So far, we know that MIT has some procedure to make totally clear aerogels, but it's very, very expensive. They can be done. And the other thing is that they are very fragile, so they have to make them a little bit more robust if you want to put them in a window. So the problem is the silicon aerogels have average pore size of 10 nanometers, but you really have to keep all the pore size throughout the aerogel around. We were thinking below 50 nanometers to make it totally clear. So people have proposed all sorts of things from nanofoam, mesolaces, nanocomposites, and all sorts of aerogels. And what we're calling for is 3 different ways of 3 different types of products. One, we just have an applied product, which you have the, say, the low-E coating, the super insulator, and you can stick it on a glass pane. So that would be your applied product. You will not remove the window, you will just coat it on or laminate it onto an existing pane. The category 2, if you will just do a single pane new window, and you will replace the existing window with something that will be much better and much, much cheaper than a double pane window. And the category 3 is partial solution, and could be either a different low-E coating that is much cheaper than the Pilkington or the 3M coating. It could be some sealing for the edge of the windows to avoid condensation and so forth. So anything that would help all the other groups too, that even if they don't have a good solution, we can apply that solution in combination with other groups. So in the category 1, I just want to highlight, this is what we asked for, but I just want to highlight the things that are really hard. We want a case less than 2%. The condensation temperature has to be -5 degrees. I thought it was not good enough, but I mean, that's what it is. And we want it less than $5 per square foot. So it's a very inexpensive solution.
So what are, can you give a sense of what the existing applied products are like for the 3M?
The 3M is like $25 per square foot.
Or you know,
Eric was saying something because he was calling manufacturers. He was saying some are asking for installed $35 per square foot.
And then the human factor that you usually get with.
Well, that would be the 0.3 minus the 1.1, so it would be a 0.8, right? So this would be better. This would be better.
And then some of those also condensation, right? With the coating that you apply, they go on.
And the second solution, which is the one that you will replace the single pane window, then you want a case of less than 1%, which is really like a normal window. The condensation will be minus 10 degrees, which is pretty rare for most ceramics, and $10 per square foot install.
Is there any way you apply any materials to the glass itself?
Yeah, the first solution, you could do that.
Unlike the glass sort of manufactured inside the glass.
And the glass, nobody proposed that. I mean, you could in principle, although it's very high temperature. Nobody has proposed that. But people have proposed, for instance, painting the coatings. But this is an assortment of proposals here. So what the relative performance we were looking for, the single pane was the performance in the first line. The double pane is in the second line. So the appearance is not as good on the double pane as the single pane. The soundproof is about marginal difference. The window comfort, of course, in the double pane is much better than single pane. Condensation much better, insulation much better, but it's very expensive. And these two proposals that we are trying to do here is something they match the single pane. It's a single pane essentially. So the appearance is unlooted, and the rest you improve not as much as you would with the double pane, but you have a 10x less price than you have with the double pane.
The cost targets, right? Were we giving the proposals some kind of guidance on volume? Is it low volume, high volume?
We didn't say anything. The manufacturer, I don't know, say 1 million square foot. Really, it wasn't manufactured at 2 square feet. Right? Eventually, they have to do a cost analysis that with a certain number of square feet. Yeah, it will be a handmade coating, I don't think. And even scaling up the materials, I mean, with nanomaterials, I mean, it's not a 5 gram sample will cost you a lot, but if you do a 50 gallon, it's much less expensive. So we went to the selection process, and we awarded $31 million on the window proposal. And here are the different organizations that got the award. We have 3 SBIRs. This is San Diego company. The CEO is left the last 2 years ago. IR Dynamics and Trident. And the rest are normal awards. And here we try to categorize what the different programs were proposing. So there are a lot of silicon aerogels. Then we have some color variants of different materials. And these are totally different approaches. That they get the super insulation properties by other means. Some are trying to make different low-heat coatings that are much cheaper because the 3M is really expensive. Right? And just like coating nanomaterials and so forth. And a few of them will give their enough to claim they were going to measure the behavior of the window. So, and right now we are under finishing all the negotiations to have them under contract. The SBIR has to come under contract in a few weeks, and the other ones will follow after that. So here we try to put a little bit of history on how Windows started. The first Windows in 1950, they started with the stone windows. In 1925, they started with the sheet glass, which is the historical houses, and you see all this very non-flat glass. And the closed glass, which is a very, very flat glass, starting in the 60s, late 50s. And once you have truly flat glass, then you can go into the double pane windows because you can feel and so forth. And that started close to the 70s. They added the low-heat coating to the insulating glass in the 80s. And this independent low-heat glass films like Single-Pane and 3M a few years ago, 10 years ago, we are hoping that maybe we can add one of our proposals. We have something interesting enough that we can add to this list. So maybe we do what we are. If it works, we will matter, and I hope Windows will matter. Thank you.
Graciela, okay, questions from the audience now.
How much does this fit residential versus commercial? Because I think most of us personally are used to our windows in our homes, but it looked like this was a strong commercial focus.
No. It's mostly residential.
It
is residential.
Because the part that seems to be missing is the frame. You know, you're attacking the glass, but you could still have thermal bridging and condensation on the window frame itself.
Yeah, no, I'm mostly, many of the proposals are thinking of a frame to come and as an insert into the window. No, from the single pane, 33% of the residential are single pane, and 40% are commercial. But we're not trying to go into commercial at all. Most of the awardees are trying to go into historical houses as their first marketing.
You're asking about ceilings. Is that what you're asking?
No, the actual frame that holds the glass will oftentimes be a thermal bridge, and you'll still get condensation and icing and dripping no matter what you do to the glass.
Yeah. So, and some of the proposals are having super hydrophobic layers over that. Yeah. Some others would have one that has a very interesting seal method to block all the condensation in. But that's not trivial at all. I don't know if we can do it or not. Yeah, right now they have in the double pane window they have a secant at the edges to absorb all the extra humidity. And the single pane you cannot do that.
Right.
Okay.
You
may have mentioned that, Kevin, late, I'm sorry, but will there be another round to the FOA, or is it just going on to the FBI?
The windows are done, therefore, yeah. But I mean, they're always checking the website because they're always coming. Now there was a code for batteries. I think it's just closing, but every few months there are new codes in very, very different areas.
Out of curiosity as well, and it may not apply, but the dichromatic glass, the glass that actually can change the...
Yeah, we have one of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just going off the frame conversation, there's conversations around that you might even argue that the way that a window is installed in a facade is more important than the glass is in it. So in that case, we're talking about U factor versus U value. We're talking about the U value of the glass itself, so U factor in a manufactured window. In the U.S., U factor includes the U value of the frame and the thermal bridge factor of the space area. So U factor versus U value is a very different conversation. And in a window, that was a single pane window installed in a masonry in a structural brick facade, regardless of the fact that you are going to help insulate a single pane window, what about a solid wood frame that's touching a piece of brick?
Yeah, we have two of the proposals that talking about it, how do we come to the bridge?
How are we going to do that?
Yeah.
I think that is a very interesting proposal, but if there are teams that are ignoring the frame and ignoring the way that the window is attached to an existing building, the solution is not complete.
Yeah. And I'll add that I was at the workshop that Eric held, and there was a lot of conversation about installation.
Yeah.
And part of it was that the cost targets were so low. At $10 a square foot, you're saying that you can't professionally install those. Those have to be a residential homeowner has to install it themselves. So that's, I think that's made its way in, that you have to, figure out how to do it that it's some.
But a lot of the Korean films is installed by homeowners, they're selling for like $25 for $2.
Is it really working, regardless of how much?
But back to what you were saying, probably at the center of the glass is probably working really good, and at the edge, I don't know how good, right? But in any case, with a 0.3 decrease in overall use is better than nothing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So that
You could take the best window on earth, R11 center glass, and install it directly on a brick, and it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
It's all about how the window is installed. So this is a very challenging situation that has much more to do than only the glass, especially in a historic building that you're not allowed to replace a window.
Oh, totally. I live in a 1933 house. I cannot touch anything.
How do we take this technology? The glass is, the frame is more important than the glass. Maybe where is the frame, how the frame is touching a structural member is more important than the glass, or just as important. So what would the next step be? If you insulate the glass, this gentleman is correct, you're still going to have tons of condensation potential, condensation on the frame and on the wall.
We have a number of super hydrophobic films being considered for the edge. So we're hoping that may help some.
Well, so that means the condensation can't stick to that, but it runs down the wall.
And I protect the pillar because they have a dissecant at the edges. So maybe we would have to do something similar to that.
I think that's.
It is what it is.
Right. But what is it? What is the next?
The next
Can
step
you
for us.
insulate the frame? Can you insulate the interior of the building?
With the historical windows, is what you're saying. There is you cannot touch the architecture. So if we can introduce something at the edges that reduces the condensation, and we have overall the condensation is minus 15 degrees with one of these technologies, so that would help on itself on that.
But not on purpose.
Yeah.
So
So I get your point.
It's a very interesting solution to the glass, and our next step as designers is how we fix the rest of it. Right? Glass.
Is there a key to mitigation?
It's really already a deep looking at applying technologies to double pane windows. It's at 60% of the windows.
Yeah, actually, some of the programs are thinking on, especially with the aerosols, are thinking on extending people.
I was just wondering that.
And let me add something else. The core is calling for single-pane, but our leads can do whatever they want in terms of commercialization. So they can enter whatever market they think is the best market to enter. So if it is triple-pane with the world, okay. As long as they commercialize, we're good.
Could add it to any glass regardless.
So go to David. I'm going to mention one thing to the people on the webinar. If you want to enter questions into the chat window, we can get those. David.
Following up on that question, I just wondered, because I'm not aware of it, maybe are there materials out there that are films or sprays or paints that can do what they're talking about, like clear, but maybe not as translucent as you need in the glass, so to provide that barrier that you're looking for the window, whatever's around the window. It seems like that might be something that exists out there.
With the typical aerosols, you can use transparent, the thermal conductivity is very, very, very low. So one of the proposals calling for spraying is not a silicone aerosol. You have to block the edge to not let air water in. And one of the solutions for edge blocking is pretty clever. So we're hoping that we can extend that to the various other programs. I'm not free to discuss what the details of course are, but that would be a good solution that can be sent to all the programs.
Just an FYI, in April of this year, NYSERDA and ARPA-E signed a memorandum of understanding to collaborate and advance, these disruptive technologies into the marketplace. And in support of that, NYSERDA has issued a solicitation specifically calling out activities that build on ARPA-E funding. So if, or like, it's not intended to be cost share, but it could be, taking that concept towards commercialization, doing a pilot demonstration. So there's $3 million of funding available for that. So you could apply concurrently when you apply for ARPA-E. If you have a pending award or you have your intermittent award, there's that opportunity to get additional funding to bring it to commercialization.
And actually, we have ideas programs which you can apply on anything. So if you have an idea on how to connect to the edge and eliminate the airflow, they start at $500,000 and you can get up to $2 million. So it can be an extension and ideas onto shields how to put into the framework of the window. So anybody is welcome to do that, especially if you know a solution that will help.
Joe Warwick is the Advanced Buildings Program at NYSERDA. Are there any New York projects that maybe could apply from SHIELD? Do you know of any from New York?
No, that's not any.
It's amazing because we're working with a company in Schenectady, Sunwood, that's using aerogel technology for windows. I'm surprised that they didn't apply.
They applied, and then the person that was the private the first investigator they left, so they ended up not applying. It would have been an idea as a person to come.
In the use of the aerogels, you mentioned how fragile they are. Is any of the work addressing the need to compensate for bowing of the pane?
A lot of them are addressing like cross-linking and making them really much. So they have to survive the handling when you make the window, right? Or when you clean the window. I mean, if you have something that falls apart when you start cleaning. It's a hard problem. It's very hard.
And I really wouldn't do it.
And that's what they are two in the 14. Yeah, that makes a difference because it's $30 million.
Can you say at all or explain how the aerogels are applied to windows or possibly how they?
For the replacement option, our materials other than normal silica, amorphous glass being considered.
Yeah, actually, more than half of the insulators are non-silica. And some are very interesting, and some are very, very strong and nanomaterials. So I have hope for that, and some are like rose walls to go directly on the glass.
I'm thinking of the actual silica glass substrate.
Yeah. And I think one of the universities is thinking on working with glass manufacturers to go directly on top during the fabrication of the glass.
The one is actually thinking of replacing the actual glass.
I don't know. We're not saying.
With some sort of a polymer.
No, it's a but the yellow is really in the long run, right? Yeah. No, nobody proposed that. No, because actually we were calling for on glass, right? So it was within the specs of the funding opportunity have to follow.
Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question for the room or for the presenter, and it's on the question of historic preservation. So it's kind of like it's accepted as part of the program that historic preservation would not allow the replacement of single-pane windows with double-pane. Why? So what's the argument from a historic preservation perspective that the single-pane?
We've actually got the word confused. When it comes to historic, in many cases it's hysteric. So something that would make total logical sense wouldn't be considered for that. I actually ended up building windows inside my historic windows. That would be removed.
Yeah.
And then the inside.
Yeah.
And then there's another very complicated solution, and that's called, in some rooms, you block off those windows during the winter from the inside, just because it's impractical to keep in some of those rooms.
But again, why, or is there somebody that would make the case, that it's the aesthetic appearance of a single-pane window?
It's slightly different. Like in my neighborhood, they have this architectural committee, and all the houses have to look the same because they're all the 1833, and you cannot touch a window. And I don't think they would even notice if you did, except that they would see the workers doing it, and then you're in trouble. But
then, so some of the windows in your house were made in 1833, but then somebody threw a baseball through your window. You had to replace it.
You can replace the glass. But
you have to find 1833 glass.
Again, I'm not an expert at it, but I think it's based on the loss of that historical value. If you have a window out and replace it with a bottom, the whole thing, the trim, the wood, the glass, that might be the might be plate glass versus wood. All those things come into play. The only time we've been able to replace windows and glass is one example recently, I think I named and others, but it was single steel sash glass, and sash was totally rusted, and couldn't repair it. If it had a little bit of rust on it, we were required to clean it up and paint it. It was so rusted because of the condensation over 100 years that it was could not save it. But what we did have to do is we had to find a double pane window that had the exact or very, very similar sight lines and profile of the buttons to match the look of the original glass window.
So I wonder, does anyone know there's this renovation project going on in the building in downtown Syracuse that's known as the Herald Commons? It's where the Herald newspaper was. And those are new windows going in. Maybe there wasn't this requirement, but it has the appearance at least from an engineer looking at the building. It looks like it's authentic. It's in keeping with the architecture of the building.
From a distance.
Yeah.
I
don't know. Maybe that building was not subject.
I don't think it's on this work.
I know Pike Bluff, we did the tour there, and they said they were getting historic preservation funding, so they had to use single-pane, even though they're trying to be very energy efficient.
The old glass windows use wood frames. Wood has a tendency to rot after a while. So if you had a historical window and the frame was rotting, you've got to be able to replace it with something, possibly with something that looks exactly the same, but it might not be wood, might be some sort of polymer, possibly it could be wood or treated wood or something. Like that.
But they would force you to do wood, right? Yes. I think so too.
Well, I watch this old house program on UBS where Norm Abrams and Tom Silver replace windows all the time, and they seem in historical settings. And they seem to replace it with better materials usually. So maybe just certain places are more rigid than others.
Gary, do we have any questions from the web? I think that wraps it up. We have a reception outside, and Graciela will be sticking around for a little bit to answer any other questions you want to ask.
Yep. Question?
Yeah, I just want to comment, which was that I've actually, I've always understood that if you were replacing windows in a historic structure, that as long as you did not change dimensions or appearance, that you could actually put in modern windows. And I think that included, using wood if it was a wooden window. But I also know that over at campus, for example, there are 100-year-old windows, 100-year-old single-pane wooden windows in Sims Hall, for example, that the maintenance guys are still desperately attempting to keep in one piece because they can't, because replacing them would be so expensive. And personally, I think that if you looked at what it costs to keep these buildings, it's just crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I can imagine how much it costs to keep our building.
Yeah, so I mean, even though even though these windows are like 3 by 6 feet, and there are many windows in the building. And
on the ARPA-E building, the outside is all glass.
Well, it's not. Well, this is one of those, late Victorian, buildings, but the heating bill has got to be astronomical for these buildings.
Well, enjoy the reception outside with our double pane windows. Air conditioning. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
No, I just think you put a image collector on the outside and a display screen on the inside. But you see what's outside.
Exactly. Airplane. Aircraft.